So with the release of Mulaney and Chaska's banners, I figured I'd go over a little bit of something called Hypercarry versus Team Damage. Now, what this is basically a character like Mavwika we would consider, a Hypercarry, because you have 1 support here, 2 support here, and 3 support here. Now, Silali can do some damage, which would then equate to a team damage, but it's so minuscule that, we have Mavwika here and we're like, okay, she's a Hypercarry. Right? Now, Mavwika doesn't have to be a Hypercarry, right? So that's one thing, but it is her best team, because at this point, saying someone has a best team is just wrong because Stygian exists, and Stygian is so different. Simple as that. A case in point, the Cactus boss here, you can't just go in here with that melt team and expect to win. You just can't. You can't. But what you can do is go in here with a weird team of this, and this will work. It will just work. So as we can see here, we are, seeing some damage, right? We're doing some damage, and then we're gonna go ahead and have this up, and yeah, we're ready to defeat the Cactus boss, and I'll just show you guys a quick, run with Mavwika where the Cactus boss wasn't so easily beaten, to say the least. It really just wasn't. Yeah, let's go ahead. Yeah, sure. Let's grab that. Let's grab another Nefa E. Let's grab this. Yeah. And yeah, sure. So easily beaten, 47 seconds. Let's go ahead and I'll take a melt team in here and we'll see, how good that fares. So this is a team that would be considered a Hypercarry team. Now, this doesn't necessarily matter. I'm just trying to show you guys the difference between the teams, and that team-wide damage absolutely matters at this point. Because if you look, well, hold on, we actually have to be able to hit the end, okay. So if you look at the damage that I'm doing here. I'm not doing good damage. This is awful. This is actually just awful. This is, there's no way to say this. It's just awful. Let's go. Come on. He's got cryo applied and he switched his thing. So as you can see here, something that we, had to acknowledge is that we're seeing an issue, right? Mavwika being our sole damage dealer just made us miss millions of damage being applied to his shield, and that's not even mentioning the whole we weren't even able to clear because we used Mavwika as our sole damage dealer. So Chaska is a character that is heavily dependent on what her team looks like. It is simple as that. She is. If you don't have like a whole bunch of different variety of supports, you're not gonna think as highly of Chaska as I do, right? I have nearly every 5.0 character, and I'm like, oh man, Chaska's great, man. She has like 500 different teams and all of them are just really good, right? That's how I feel about Chaska. If you have Furina, no, you wouldn't use Shieldon, Furina, Raiden, and Silali, your team ain't gonna look so good. It just isn't. I mean, you might be able to clear some stuff, but it'll be nowhere near as good as, Chaska, Mavwika, Furina, then, Nefa if you need it, or, maybe Silali for Mavwika, right? So, it's a very delicate thing with Chaska's team, right? She is heavily dependent on her team, and you could say the same thing about Mulaney, right? You do need to get a lot of her good supports. I would recommend, if you care about your sanity, you're gonna need Mavwika, because Shangling Burst Cost, it's Shangling Burst Cost in Stygian. You start with 0 energy. I don't know how well that's gonna go. Especially if she's the only pyro character. Yeah, that's just a nightmare. I'm never doing that. I'm sorry, but I'm never testing Mulaney with Shangling. I'm not. I don't condone doing, things that may cause mental health issues. But what we should understand with Chaska is that, that's how she is, right? That's how she is. Whereas Mulaney, you can downgrade a couple of her supports. Now, I don't have Mulaney to make a team. I guess I should make the teams that I'm saying. But, if you have this team, right, for Chaska, it would look something like this, right? Raiden's got, a 20-second duration, so I'll put her second there. Yeah, it would look something like this. And this team could, in theory, defeat a lot of stuff, right? It's not a bad team. but you're missing a lot of, you know, off-field damage, which is what Cheska relies on quite a bit. And even though she can do a lot of damage herself, she could do, from my testing, she's done upwards of 1.5 million, but you are going to need, you know, luck for one. You're going to need luck for your melts and vapes and stuff, right? On this team, she can't even melt and vape, so it's not even going to be close to 1.5 million, right? Not even close. And that's without her weapon, right? Her weapon would give her a sizable increase. I do believe that with her weapon, you could reach upwards of 2 million damage just by her alone, along with having off-field damage dealers like Mavuika, right, and like Fiorina. It can work. It can. But the good thing about team damage is that, you know, if it's team damage, we now have a lot of characters in the game that do damage of different elements off-field. If we need cryo damage off field, you use Miss Coffee. If you need electro damage off field, you use an Effa. Or depending on the situation, you can use Fischl instead, right? And Fischl can work out very well in an overload version. But, you know, if you have, obviously, an Effa works very well in the Cactus boss here, right? If you need Hydro, we have Fiorina. If you need Pyro, we have Mavuika. So we have a lot of elements that are supporting this off-field damage meta of, you know, this, you just have the team carry the DPS, right? And that is what Cheska is. However, we have Mulanni. Mulanni can work very, very well as a solo hypercarry character because she does a lot of damage, right? Mavuika will do a lot of damage with her, right? Mavuika, you know, will be on her team and she will either, depending on the team, right? So we're, for our Mulanni, you know, placement, we're gonna just use Nevi because I don't really have a character to replace her with. So let's say you're making a team sort of like this for Mulanni. This is a team that I've seen tossed around. You know, there's also a different version where instead of, you know, Silali, you have Sucrose. So instead of Silali, you have Sucrose there, and it works, right? And from what I can see and what I've looked at, it works, right? And really, all of the damage that you're getting is from, you know, Mavuika, and then after that, there's nothing, right? You don't have Sucrose. Like, Sucrose's damage is so insignificant, it's not even funny. So Mavuika is able to do off-field damage, but Mulanni's doing, like, 3 times her damage on the team, right? That is where we are at with, you know, characters like Mulanni. So that's a hyper-carry team, right? Because Mavuika is an off-field damage dealer. It's kind of turned into where hyper-carries typically do have a sub-DPS. You can even go back and see this in 4.0, where, you know, we do have Fiorina on basically every team, and it really is just kind of like, oh, well, she's doing all field. So technically, it doesn't fit a 100% definition of hypercarry, but to be fair, it is still a very much so hypercarry intensive team, right? Because I mean, we're using 2 buffers, another buffer with Mavuika who is giving 40%, you know, Fiorina in that case was giving 100%, right? So they're not unsupportive, but they're also doing damage off field, right? So team damage is very, very effective, and it's very, very effective during certain scenarios. Let's go ahead and talk about where it's not effective. So to talk to where it's not effective, we're gonna go ahead here to the turtle boss, who specifically doesn't like, you know, having a lot of damage off field. So we're gonna pop this, and I'm gonna immediately pop the E skill for Silali because she needs to get her energy up, right? You know, when you're dealing with 0 energy Stygian, this is what we're looking at, right? So as you can see, this turtle boss has a little electro bar right there, right? I don't know if I'm pointing to it, right? But as you can see, I'm not doing very many hits here, and that bar is based on hits, right? And there is also scenarios where there are small damage windows where you don't want to necessarily be doing damage all the time, because then you kind of waste a lot of damage, right? But we can see here that, you know, Silali's doing a decent amount of hits, I would say, but there we go with that, and then we have that, and boom, and yeah. So we did end up doing more hits than we should have, but as you can see, we did, you know, we prolonged that, and I have done runs where it hasn't been an issue at all. I just need to step away a little bit for Mavuika, and then we're good. However, on a team like Cheska's, I mean, I was literally unable to do it. Now, this is a little bit of a gimmick with Cheska, but, well, actually, at the same time, not really. So let's go ahead. What was my team with Cheska? I think it was this, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but this will work to showcase what I want to see. So I was using something like this, right? Something, right? I don't know, but we can see these off-field damage dealing teams, you know, the team-wide damage, basically, and look how fast his bar has gone. His bar, already full. His bar is already full, and I just did a setup. So, you can see there are advantages and there are specific scenarios where this is gonna be an issue, right? And it is important to understand that, you know, I'll quickly show you guys. They do have monikers for, you know, low frequency damage. What that means is don't do as many hits, right? This is basically don't do a lot of hits, not do a lot of hits in one burst. This is don't do a lot of hits, period. If you do a lot of hits, then you're gonna be, you know, very much so hurt, because that is what high frequency damage is. Now, the cactus boss doesn't have anything like that, but just something to note when you are looking at, you know, bosses this in Stygian, they will say, oh, hey, low frequency damage, right? And it is a very useful tool because, I mean, again, I literally cannot beat it with this team because he brings up his shield so much, right? I literally can't beat it with this team. And, you know, Chaska, sure, she does a lot of hits, but we didn't even use Chaska, right? Chaska, oh, she fires 6 bullets. We didn't even start using Chaska. We just simply pressed her E skill, and the bar was full. It is impossible to not get the shield up with this much all-field damage. So yeah, that's some of the differences between a hypercarry model of team and then a, you know, team-wide damage model of team. I do think that this is kind of important to note because we are starting to see bosses that are specifically like, you can't do this, and now it actually matters that you can't do that, right? It used to be like, oh, you don't like high frequency damage? Whatever, I'll destroy your shield and you're gonna have such little HP, I'm not gonna care. Now, we have to care because they have a lot of HP. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.